Picture Renaissance Rome, 1502. Torches hiss in the vast hallways of the Vatican, marble floors gleaming under the flickering light. Tonight, a wedding unfolds, not of love, but of ambition, and every glance, gesture, and whisper carries weight. The bride is Lucrezia Borgia, daughter of Pope Alexander VI, barely 22. She moves through the hall draped in cloth of gold, pearls stitched across her bodice like frozen tears. The scent of roasted peacocks mingles with spiced wine. The air is thick with expectation. No one mistakes this wedding for affection. It is survival in brocade. At the center of this glittering court stands Alonso d'Este of Ferrara, gleaming in polished armor, pale beneath the sheen. He is not merely marrying a woman, he is marrying the legend and suspicion of the Borgias. Whispers of poison, incest, and ruthless ambition follow her like a shadow. The marriage is political. Rome wants legitimacy. Ferrara wants papal coin. Alonso wants heirs. And lurking beneath the embroidered banners lies a grotesque clause: the marriage must be proven in flesh. Not after, but during the ceremony itself, under watchful eyes. A ritual of verification, meant to remove doubt, to seal alliances with undeniable evidence. As the banquet drags on, musicians thread double meanings through their melodies, and poets sugar their lines with repeated words: fertility. Toasts lift goblets to commanding wishes. May your womb fill Ferrara's cradle. Across the table, Lucrezia's fingers tighten around her cup, white at the knuckles, her smile calm, practiced, still. She understands every glance is a verdict. Her past has hardened her. A first husband declared impotent to facilitate annulment, a second stabbed while she wept. Now, with Alonso d'Este, there must be no loopholes, no whispers, no escape. The marriage will be witnessed. 3 times. This night, Rome turns the wedding bed into a stage, and the bride into evidence. The chamber awaits, draped in velvet, perfumed with roses, prepared with the meticulous precision of ritual. Alonso, nervous and flushed, takes his place. Clerics, envoys, scribes, the audience of power, stand ready. The act that belongs to two becomes a ritual for many. Lucrezia does not tremble. She recognizes the script. She has stood in public stocks of humiliation before. She wears composure like armor. Accounts differ on her private feelings. Did she rage behind her mask? Did she swallow the ordeal quietly? What is certain is monstrous precision. The first consummation observed, the second the following day to prevent claims of staging, the third to finalize the proof. The Borgia Protocol, whispered across Italy, becomes legend. Yet from this theater of cruelty, a lesson emerges. Humiliation can harden into leverage. Weakness becomes a weapon. Lucrezia begins to see the threads of power, the invisible levers hidden behind gilded eyes. Lucrezia steps into Ferrara not as a shadow of Rome, but as a presence to be reckoned with. The Este court glimmers with Renaissance polish, stone halls polished to cold perfection, frescoed ceilings alive with myth, corridors echoing with measured footsteps. Yet beneath this civility lies the same ancient game of power, alliances, rivalries, and whispers carried faster than wind. Every gesture in Ferrara is observed, analyzed. Courtiers measure the width of a curtsy, the brightness of a smile, the tilt of a head. Lucrezia watches in return. She learns quickly which noble women wield influence through gossip, which scholars measure worth in intellect, and which men mask ambition with courtesy. She is in every sense a student and a master at once. Her strategy is subtle. The spectacle meant to break her, the triple verification of her marriage, becomes a tool. She lets the court witness her strength, poise unbroken, dignity intact, eyes calm. From this she constructs authority disguised as grace. Those who expected a scandal see only composure. Those who sought a pawn encounter a strategist. Lucrezia's presence is magnetic. Scholars lean into her questions. Poets adjust their verse to catch her approval. Artists position their works to reflect her taste. Gifts and gestures become contracts written in sparkle. Silks, jewels, tokens of obligation that bind those around her to her orbit. She doesn't demand loyalty. She orchestrates it, letting admiration and obligation intersect invisibly. Even Alonso learns to navigate this new dynamic. At first, stiff with embarrassment over Rome's shadows, he gradually becomes her partner in subtle power. 2 orbits intersect, Alonso's force tempered by discipline, Lucrezia's cunning balanced with presence. Some chroniclers note an uneasy alliance, others a partnership emerging with surprising harmony. Either way, the couple becomes a duet of strategy in a court that prizes perception above all. The rumors of her past, first annulment, second husband's violent death, whispers of poison and incest, follow her like a shadow. But Lucrezia does not fight them. She outshines them. When insulted, she responds with grace. When doubted, with competence. When challenged, with results. Every letter she writes, every gathering she hosts, is a carefully measured step in turning Rome's poison into Ferrara's strength. Banquets, once arenas of suspicion, become showcases of her intellect and taste. Sugar sculptures glint like jewels, conversations thread through philosophy, poetry, and strategy. Every act of hospitality becomes a lesson in soft power, influence that looks effortless but is meticulously curated. In this environment, Lucrezia transforms further. If the wedding night taught her endurance and leverage, Ferrara teaches her mastery and visibility. She no longer merely survives. She begins to define the court itself. Ferrara's stone halls, though cold in structure, begin to pulse with warmth and brilliance under Lucrezia's guidance. She does not merely occupy space, she animates it. Her court becomes a stage for intellect, artistry, and influence, and she is both curator and performer. Salons, once peripheral gatherings, transform under her touch into soft power engines. Scholars debate Plato and Aristotle. Poets craft verses, commissioned to flatter the mind as much as the heart. Musicians thread complex harmonies through the air like invisible nets. In every corner, Lucrezia observes, listens, and records. The court itself becomes a mirror, reflecting her intentions and responding to her presence. Her patronage is meticulous. Painters are commissioned to illuminate myth and virtue. Altarpieces capture both devotion and prestige. Jewels, embroidered fabrics, and rare silks are not mere adornments. They are statements, coded messages of authority, taste, and control. Every gesture in the court, from the giving of gifts to the positioning of objects in a hall, becomes a negotiation of influence. Even courtiers who once sneered at her wedding night are drawn into her orbit. Their initial skepticism dissolves before her quiet, commanding presence. She does not humiliate or coerce. She entices, charms, and binds through subtle strategy. Where Rome relied on spectacle to assert power, Lucrezia in Ferrara relies on nuance and perception, converting curiosity into loyalty, doubt into admiration. Her letters to scholars and poets extend her influence beyond Ferrara. Correspondence tinged with intellect, charm, and philosophy turns potential rivals into allies, and the cultural landscape of Italy bends subtly under her guidance. Petru Bembo, one of the most celebrated poets of the era, writes back in both awe and longing. Whether friendship or romance, intellectual collaboration or seduction, the lines blur. Lucrezia uses all tools available. Her mind is potent as any weapon. In Ferrara, she learns that soft power can outweigh force. Her salons cultivate a network of loyalty and influence, extending her reach across courts and cities. Every conversation, every gathering, every carefully placed gift strengthens her position. The court begins to revolve around her gravity, yet beneath the brilliance lies vigilance. Rome's shadows linger. Whispers of scandal, poison, and political intrigue never fully vanish. But Lucrezia now controls the narrative. She does not erase history. She reframes it. What was once humiliation becomes leverage, scandal becomes influence, and the world begins to perceive her not as a Borgia of infamy, but as La Bana Duchessa, a sovereign in her own right. Through patronage, culture, and presence, Lucrezia transforms Ferrara. She is no longer merely a duchess by marriage, but a duchess by intellect, taste, and strategy. Every courtly event, every artistic commission, and every philosophical debate is an extension of her authority, carefully curated to strengthen her sovereignty and redefine her legacy. Years unfold in Ferrara, and Lucrezia Borgia grows from a woman forged in public humiliation into a duchess who commands respect, loyalty, and influence. The lessons of her wedding night, the theater of intimacy turned into political leverage, become the foundation for her rule. She has learned that visibility is power, endurance is strategy, and presence is authority. As the Duchess, she governs with an elegance that belies the calculation beneath. Banquets remain lessons in diplomacy. Gatherings are exercises in subtle negotiation. The courtiers who once sneered at her wedding night now seek her favor, interpret her gestures, and follow her guidance. Every action she takes is deliberate, a carefully placed word, a glance that signals approval or caution, a gift that binds loyalty silently but irrevocably. Motherhood becomes another arena of authority. She bears children, each birth weaving her deeper into the fabric of Este legitimacy. The alliances forged through marriage are solidified through offspring, and Lucrezia ensures that each child strengthens Ferrara's position in Italy's complex network of power. She bears this responsibility with grace and intelligence, understanding that each child is both a legacy and a tool of diplomacy. At the same time, she does not allow power to stagnate in politics alone. Ferrara thrives under her cultural and intellectual patronage. Artists, humanists, and scholars flock to her court, drawn by her taste, intellect, and generosity. Salons become engines of influence, where ideas are currency and engagement is both art and strategy. Poets like Pietro Bembo exchange letters that combine philosophy, wit, and admiration, expanding her reach far beyond Ferrara. Alonso, once uneasy in the shadow of Borgia intrigue, learns to navigate this evolving partnership. His authority as a soldier and ruler complements her strategic brilliance. Together, they form a delicate duet, sometimes uneven, sometimes harmonious, but always focused on consolidating power and legacy. Ferrara begins to see them as co-rulers, their combined presence shaping the court and the city itself. Yet Lucrezia's mastery is not just in public display. She understands the hidden currents of influence, which courtiers can be swayed with subtlety, which scholars and diplomats respond to intellect over flattery, and which rivals are best left with the illusion of autonomy. Every glance, every gesture, every conversation is a calculated move, building invisible networks that ensure her dominion. Even Rome's shadows, the whispers of scandal, poison, and intrigue, cannot penetrate the control she has built. She does not confront them directly. She absorbs them, reframes them, and transforms them into instruments of power. The Borgia protocols meant to humiliate her now serve as proof of resilience and authority. Her reputation, once a potential weapon against her, becomes a shield and a tool, allowing her to navigate Ferrara's complex society with finesse. By mastering Ferrara, Lucrezia demonstrates that true sovereignty comes not only from titles or marriages, but from intellect, strategy, and the art of perception. She has converted every attempt to diminish her into fuel for influence, turning humiliation into leverage, scandal into authority, and expectation into control. Time, relentless and impartial, moves through Ferrara, carrying with it the culmination of Lucrezia Borgia's calculated resilience. The Duchess who entered the Este court as a pawn, scrutinized and humiliated, now commands a legacy that reaches far beyond gossip and scandal. She is a presence that the city measures itself against, a figure whose influence touches art, politics, and culture. Her court pulses with humanist ideals, yet always with the sharp edge of strategy beneath the elegance. Salons, commissions, and letters extend her reach, tying Ferrara to scholars and artists across Italy. Each child she bears, each marriage she arranges for them, and each alliance she navigates further consolidates the Este dominion. Motherhood and governance intertwine. Her children are extensions of authority, not mere heirs. Even as she builds, she faces the shadow of mortality. Rome's whispers, accusations, rumors, fears of Borgia poison never fully fade. Yet she meets them with composure, allowing her accomplishments to overshadow scandal. In her final years, she governs decisively, issues decrees with steady hands, and maintains a court that reflects both power and cultivated grace. The city of Ferrara comes to recognize her not only as a duchess, but as La Buona Duchessa, the good duchess, a woman whose presence transforms perception. She commissions altarpieces, churches, and convents, leaving physical monuments that outlast gossip and rumor. Her patronage is not mere charity. It is strategic legacy, artful diplomacy carved in stone and painted in fresco. Yet, despite influence and power, Lucrezia is human. She experiences the quiet solitude of performance, the longing for nights without an audience, the weight of expectation pressing on every gesture. Still, even this becomes part of her mastery. She channels the tension into poise, intelligence, and foresight, ensuring that the court, her family, and history remember her strength more than her vulnerabilities. Tragically, in 1519, at just 39, Lucrezia dies giving birth to her 10th child. Her death, though sudden, is met with grief rather than ridicule. Ferrara mourns not the scandal, but the duchess who turned humiliation into sovereignty, who transformed a theatre of cruelty into a crucible of power and presence. Her life demonstrates a paradox both haunting and luminous. A wedding night designed to break her instead made her indomitable. The Borgia Protocol, intended as a brand of shame, becomes the foundation of authority. Through endurance, intellect, and strategy, Lucrezia converts every obstacle into leverage, every whisper into a lesson, and every expectation into control. In the candlelit halls of Ferrara, her story continues to echo, not in gossip, but in stone, paint, and letters, in a court that she shaped, and in history that quietly acknowledges her as more than a pawn. She is a duchess, a mother, a patron, a strategist, and a sovereign. The scandal that once defined her is absorbed, reframed, and outshone by the brilliance of her life and legacy. History often remembers battles, treaties, and kings. But sometimes it is in the theater of survival, the mastery of perception, and the transformation of adversity into authority that true legacy is written. Lucrezia Borgia exemplifies this. A woman who rose from humiliation to forge her own crown, leaving a story that is unforgettable, paradoxical, and enduring.